It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes. Yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews. You never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
It is time for our positive vibes only segment here on Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington. And joining us from out of sunny Jupiter, Florida, we've got Michael Wellington, an author of Birds, Bogies, and Bipolar Disorder: The Fight Against Mental Illness on and Off the Green. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Renee. I really appreciate it.
I'm happy to have you here to get into, your work and what you've been working around in mental illness, your book and everything. So just off the bat, why mental illness? What made you decide to even get started writing a book and working in that area to begin with?
Well, when I got out of college back in very early 2001, I moved to Florida to start my career as a professional golfer. And about 5 weeks into that journey, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I had just a very interesting and odd 10-year stretch from 2001 to 2011. And I had some very close friends of mine that encouraged me to write my book and share my story. And the story started about that time in the beginning of 2001, and it kind of came to a healthier end in 2011. So I wrote the book, and it turned out to be a really cool project. We were able to get NBC and Golf Channel host David Faraday to write the foreword, another man who lives very successfully with bipolar disorder. And, I was able to share my story effectively, and we started a foundation called birdiesforbipolar.org as a branch off of the book. And we've done some positive things in my hometown in St. Louis. We've also done some positive events down in New Orleans. I have a lot of friends in the New Orleans area. And so we've done golf fundraising events. We've done stand-up comedy events. We've done trivia nights, things like that. And, if you would have told me at 25 years old that I would have started a 501c3 mental health nonprofit and written a book, I would have said you're crazy. But it just kind of seemed that this was an important part of my journey. And I've been happy to share some of the things that I've gone through, and tried to show people that just because you have a mental illness doesn't mean you can't live a productive life.
Yeah, no, that's something that I feel like a lot of people really do struggle with when you have been diagnosed with a mental illness and you feel as though A, there's something wrong with you, and B, maybe even ashamed because of that you don't seek the help you need, or you don't have the conversations you need, and you're opening that conversation around the game of golf, but just in general in society, for people to be more comfortable, taking the steps necessary to help take care of their mental illness. So for you, playing professional golf, dealing with this change, so many changes at once, what really helped you to get through that, to be comfortable with who, with your mental illness, and be comfortable being open about it?
Well, there's a couple things. I got to give a lot of credit to my parents. They said right from the get-go that, we're going to talk about this. We're not going to sweep it under the rug. We're not going to be shameful about it. We're going to, have, as you said a moment ago, conversations about it. And to be honest, I really struggled those first 5 years from 2001 to 2006. I think a lot of people struggle. They have denial what they have a mental illness, not just bipolar disorder, but whether it's anxiety issues or depression issues, or, some of our veterans that have PTSD and other people that have PTSD. And I was lucky in the sense that I was never in denial. I knew that I definitely had bipolar disorder, but the struggle that I had was in college. I was a pretty good player on the golf course. I was an All-American, and I played golf at a high level. And when I got diagnosed with the disorder, they told me that I needed to take medication to combat and handle the disorder. And my thinking when I was younger was, well, I had all this success in college on the golf course and I wasn't taking medication at that point. So why would I need to do that now that I'm out of college? So from 2001 to 2006, I was very inconsistent with taking my medication every single
Mhm.
day. And that proved to put me in a situation where there was a lot of peaks and valleys. There could be weeks at a time where I would take the medication properly. I would take it every day, but then there would be weeks at a time where I would all out skip it, or I would maybe take half the dosage. A lot of it was kind of strange in the sense that it kind of depended how I did on the golf course. Like if I had a day where I played well and I took the full medication, I would do that the next day. But then if I had a bad day, I would maybe take half the amount of medication that I was supposed to take. And it was kind of a superstition kind of crept into some of my decision making. But in 2006, I had an unfortunate hospital stay, and I had a group of friends of mine come and have an intervention with me at the hospital where I was in St. Louis, in my hometown. And they said, Michael, look, we love you. We want to have you in our lives, but you have got to take your medication every single day. And if you don't, it's pretty obvious what happens to you when you don't take your meds. You wind up in places like this, like in the hospital, or maybe you wind up on the side of the road with no clothes on, or just kind of wild things would happen to me when I would skip my medication. And once my friends kind of sat me down in 2006, I was able to realize, hey, this is something that I can do. I have control over as long as I take the medicine every single day. And just having them kind of remind me how important it was, that finally got my attention. So after those first 5 years, I became a lot more consistent. And so that enabled me to start on the path to getting healthy. And then over the course of the next 5 years, I would eventually stop drinking. Alcohol was a big issue. I was not an everyday drinker, but I was a kind of a binge alcohol user on the weekends.
Mhm.
And once I got alcohol out of my system and I stopped drinking in 2011 and I started taking the meds every single day, the consistency of my life just became a lot better.
Wow, that's something that I saw in your story that really stood out to me is your struggle with, as you talk about, it wasn't denial, it was just not wanting to take your medication. And unfortunately, it had to get to the point where you had your friends give you an ultimatum like, look, you either take this medication or we're out. But, that is something that's very tough when you have to, change your lifestyle in the sense, talking about giving up alcohol, taking medication to be able to do what makes sense for you to be healthy. And
Yeah,
so,
you
go
make
ahead.
a good point there. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Renee, but you make a great point. So to your point, for the first 23 years of my life, I never took meds.
Mhm.
And as a person growing up in St. Louis, St. Louis is obviously the home of Budweiser. So I was fooled from 14 years old on into thinking that drinking was a cool thing to do.
Mm.
So it was difficult for me to make those changes of taking medicine every day and taking alcohol out. And it was just such a huge shift for me once I was able to make those significant changes.
Yeah. I'm glad that you made those changes and have changed the course of your life to be healthier and more, more in control or consistent, or all the time, I should say. So talk us through kind of, your journey from into writing a book and what you really wanted to put into your book as you talk about sharing your story, but also, the messages, the insight and perspective that you wrote in your book for others to be able to read, and even having that vulnerability of putting, all this information out there to share with others.
Yeah, well, I had a writing background. I worked for the school newspaper in high school, and I was the editor of the college newspaper in college. I went to a school called Spring Hill College. It's in Mobile, Alabama. And so I always had, a pretty strong writing background. And as I mentioned earlier, I had a close friend of mine kind of say to me, hey, look, you're a great writer. You should write your story. And because I think it would help a lot of people. And he was right.
Mhm.
I had no idea how many people it would help. But when I decided to write it, I just made the concrete decision that I was going to share everything. I was going to be raw. I was going to be real, because I felt like if I wasn't, then people wouldn't know what it was truly like to live with bipolar disorder. And frankly, there's a lot of things in the book that are scary and embarrassing and kind of odd and bizarre. But luckily for me, being a golfer, golf will embarrass you so badly pretty much every time you play, at least one time, if not many times. So I was never really bothered by the embarrassment factor. And I just felt like if someone was going to read it, they were going to learn, okay, well, this is what it's truly like. These are kind of some of the things you can expect if you aren't diligent about your health, if you skip your meds, or if you're into drugs and alcohol, or if you don't get enough sleep, or if you're not, using a proper diet. And I just felt like being raw and real was the most important aspect of the writing. And I think that became true to me, because many people that read the book will tell me that I read it in a couple days. And I actually, this morning, I was speaking to a college friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in many years, but she told me this morning, she goes, I actually read your book on Sunday. And I said, you read the whole book on Sunday? And she said, yeah. She's like, it moves really fast. All the stuff in there is interesting to the point that it's kind of crazy. There's a lot of crazy, stories in there that happen. And that's what people need to understand. I mean, just because someone has a mental illness, I think the word crazy is used a lot for people that have bipolar. And certainly if you live with bipolar, yes. Are you capable of crazy behavior? Yes. But you're also capable of, you have the ability to achieve great things. I mean, there's a lot of successful, well-known people that have bipolar that are doing great things. I mean, you talk about Ted Turner, who's had great success in business. He has bipolar. Halsey, who I think everybody knows in this day and age, she's having great success in the music world. I mentioned David Faraday, who was kind enough to write the foreword for my book, which was just hilarious, the stuff that he wrote for me. And the list goes on and on. I mean, Demi Lovato has been very honest about her struggles with bipolar and addiction. And so, just to add to the conversation that's going on in the world today, it was I just felt like it was kind of my role to do that. And golf has helped us spread the word a little bit more. And just the ability to be open about what you have doesn't make you a bad person. And I think by being open, that enables you to kind of make steps forward and become more healthy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You were willing to put yourself out there, because again, if you didn't share your story, if you weren't real, you probably wouldn't have captured your readers as well as you have, or even just listeners and interviews that you do and things like that. It's that vulnerability and that realness that you bring forward that really allows people to connect with you, because it's not all perfect. It's not all like, I was a professional golfer and I just had bipolar. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. No, it's a lot deeper than that. There's a lot more to it. So how have your experiences, or what have your experiences, I should say, between balancing being a professional athlete as well as dealing with mental illness helped, what has it helped to teach you that you wish you had known, back in 2001 or, earlier on in your journey balancing the two?
I think the most important thing with that question is routine.
Okay.
I don't care if you're a basketball player that when you're at the free throw line, maybe you make 3 dribbles and then shoot your shot, or if you're a golfer, maybe you take 2 practice strokes before you hit a putt. I know a pitcher in baseball might have a few movements that they make before they deliver a pitch over home plate. And all those things that when I was going through my biggest struggles, I think probably some of the biggest help I had was reading sports psychology books. Really, I was using them to help my golf game, but I think what they helped me more to do was learn about how important routine is and consistency is when it comes to my health. So, obviously when it comes to my health, every single morning, I take my meds when I wake up, and then I brush my teeth. And then the first things I do in the morning are I go to, and I do some reading and writing exercises. I have a journal that I keep every morning that I write just a few paragraphs in. Then I open up a different journal, which is my gratitude journal, and I write down, usually anywhere between 15 and 20 things that I'm grateful for. And then I have 2 books at a time that I read, and I'll read, just a chapter in each book, and just kind of making that my routine to open my day. It just kind of opens up your mind to be in a healthy place because you're feeding your mind positive things. You're reminding yourself what you're grateful for. You're learning from the readings that you're reading in these books. You're journaling to kind of, maybe get out some things you needed to get out, or maybe kind of, foreshadowing some things you need to do in the future. And so, as a golfer, routine is a huge deal. I mean, I remember seeing something on Tiger Woods. He has an exact 17-second routine that he has right before he hits a putt, whether it has to do with his practice strokes or the motions that he makes. And I think that, those routines that I've learned in sports, they've definitely transferred over into making sure my health is in a better place. And, obviously if I could go back and I could do things differently, when I was younger, I would have incorporated these routines that I do now that take care of my health a little bit more often. Because when you're young, you kind of are in a hurry to do things, and you aren't diligent about your everyday routines. And so I think if anybody, is going to learn something from the comparison between being an athlete and trying to battle with a mental illness, having things in a routine fashion can only help your cause.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, that is something that makes sense. The routine helps with really getting, down some sort of consistency. And I love the fact that you write down things you're grateful for. That's something that I was even thinking taking a mental note that I would love to do, because I think it just allows you to take time to reflect and also to appreciate what you have, as well as to just kind of be in the moment. A lot of times we wake up and I know I'm guilty of this. The first thing I do is check my phone. I just get started on my day. It
Sure.
gives you time to kind of wake up, breathe, take in, what's you're feeling at that moment, what you're thankful for in that moment, just writing down in your gratitude book, or writing down just in general, any thoughts that you may have before you get your day started. So as you mentioned, these are steps that translate across, it's beyond just mental illness and sports, but just in society, to help be more present and be more productive and really getting you through your day. So that's powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that. I think that one of the things I've learned in living with bipolar disorder now for 19 years, it's hard to believe that, but one of the things that bipolar disorder does is it has a depressive element to it. Okay, so it kind of makes you subconsciously, if you're not careful, kind of look at the downside, look at things half empty, if it were, as it were. And so, I noticed this over the years that I would kind of naturally be negative. And then once I realized, hey, that's not really me, that's just my disorder. So what I do to combat that and keep that away every morning is that gratitude journal is really an important piece to my everyday routine, because, if you get off to a bad start with your day and you already have a mental illness that produces depressive thoughts, if you can spend that, 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes writing and reading positive information and feeding your brain positive vibes, you're going to have a much better chance to have a productive day, because you're just shifting everything from the potential negativity that mental illness kind of tricks you into realizing, hey, things aren't that bad. They aren't as bad as my brain is tricking me into think they are. And if I can remember and write down all these things that you're grateful for, I mean, it can be, when you do your gratitude journal, Renee, it can be something as simple as, I'm grateful for my car. I'm grateful for my father.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for my sister. I'm grateful for, basketball, or I'm grateful
Right.
for whatever. It could be small or it could be big. I mean, just kind of reinforcing your mind with those things, to me, is it's a pretty powerful thing, especially if you do it every day, because
Yeah.
it's like building blocks on top of one another.
Yeah, yeah. And that is why I brought you on the Positive Vibes Only segment.
Ah, there we go.
So, Michael, where can our listeners follow you as you continue to spread these positive vibes and tips that, as we talk about, translate across all areas of our lives to help us be more, more productive, positive people in our everyday struggles and chapters that we're in?
Well, I'm on the Twitter. I'm at M Wellington, or I guess it's at M Wellington 3906. I don't do the Instagram, and I'm not too active on the Facebook. I just felt I've learned over time that social media and living with bipolar disorder, they're not the greatest mix for me. Anybody can get my book, Birdies, Bogeys, and Bipolar Disorder, on Amazon.com. And our website is under construction right now for my foundation, but it's birdies and the number 4 bipolar.org. But we'll have that website up in the next week or so. But I just, whether people follow me on social media or not, it doesn't do a whole lot for me. It's just a message of
Mm-hmm.
what people are battling out there. I think that bipolar is something that is it's misunderstood in a lot of different ways. And one of the things I did at the back of my book, I mean, my book is a story format, but at the very back of the book, I included a section that helps people to fight against depression. I entitled it the 14 clubs. The reason I did that is because in a competitive round of golf, you're only allowed to use 14 clubs. And these are all just ideas and tricks and things you can do to combat depression. I mean, one of them would be, hydration at a high level. People probably realize that, if you're not hydrated properly, that can lead to fatigue, and fatigue can lead to depression. And, things
Mm-hmm.
like music therapy and just all these kind of little things that you can do. You don't have to do all of them in one day, but you can do them sporadically throughout the course of a day or the course of a week. And I just think the biggest issue that we're struggling with in this country and probably in the world of all the mental illnesses is depression. Bipolar has an element of depression. So I just try to give out ideas on ways that people can fight against depression, because let's be honest, I know what it's like to be depressed. If you can figure out ways around it and how to battle it and how to beat it, compete. I always talk about competing against depression or playing defense against depression. These are things that I feel that are very helpful, and I put them all at the back of my book. So hopefully, I'm sure people will be entertained to a certain point with the book, but also they can learn something at the end by just trying to see those different avenues they can take to fight off depression.
Yeah, those are some great tips. And as you mentioned, things that you can implement into your life every day or every other day or whatever it may be, small changes that go a long way. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us in our Positive Vibes Only segment. It has been such a pleasure having you on to talk about your experiences, your work that you're doing and all the great things that you're helping to do to spread awareness and spread these positive messages. So thank you so much.
Anytime, Renee. Thank you for having me.